Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to Right Side Up. My name is Mike Taglavia. My co-host is Allison Despathy. Allison, how are you today?
I'm doing great, thank you.
That's
glad the sun is out, and we had
Yes.
our rain to water the garden, but definitely glad to have the sun back here.
Yeah. I'm thankful that the weather has been pretty cool lately. I know there are people who definitely want a little bit more warm weather.
Right.
And certain crops need certain temperatures.
Need that heat, exactly.
They need the sunshine, but they need the right temperature. Otherwise, they're not going to jump.
Right. I'm such a wimp. I need the heat. I'll take the heat any day.
I like the mild temperatures. So, okay, so we've got a lot to talk about. The first is the news of the big dairy facility closure.
Yes, devastating. I know.
We talked a lot, especially toward the end of the session, about farms and on-farm accessory businesses.
Yes, a lot of rural Vermont issues came up with
A lot
the
of
Act
rural
181.
Vermont issues, yes.
Yes.
And I hope rural Vermonters, you and I were talking about this before we started recording.
Mm-hmm.
This is a big issue. Rural Vermont is 66 to 69% of the state.
Absolutely.
So those of you who are in rural Vermont listening, don't let your guard down.
Right.
Keep paying attention to the issues that are going on.
Yes.
So we're going to touch on this article. It's a long article. It's really full of a lot of information, ladies and gentlemen. So you're probably going to want to check it out. This is on Vermont Daily Chronicle under agriculture. White. Vermont dairy industry reaches critical turning point. This is dated June 22, 2026, and this is by Mary White. And it's unfortunately this decline has been happening since 2000.
Right.
So it's no secret Vermont has experienced a dramatic decline in dairy farms. From 2000 to 2012, the state lost nearly 60% of its dairy farms, a trend that continues today. Let's take a closer look at what happened in the past 10 years. Vermont fell from 838 farms in 2016 to 414 farms by the first quarter of 2026. Current projections indicate the state will lose 50 farms by year's end. And if this trend continues, under 200 will remain by 2036. During the same period, the average herd size has nearly doubled by 273 per farm. So this is a trend that we can reverse. And we can reverse it, but I think the voters need to pay very close attention to what their candidates are saying or what the returning members who are looking to get reelected are saying.
Yes, where do they stand? It's going to be
Where do they
really
stand?
important to know what action
Yes.
that they are willing.
Returning members, do you stand for farmers? Small, medium, and large. You know, I met with small, medium, and large, rural Vermont, NOFA, Farm Bureau. What
Yes.
others are there? I think I'm missing one. Why do I feel like I'm missing one?
I don't know, but at least like hearing the voices
you
and
need
really
to-
getting
yeah.
a plan.
Well,
yes.
Vermont started out as an agrarian state. There's no reason. We have the heritage and the history of Vermont is based in working lands and agriculture. There's nothing wrong with keeping it here.
Exactly.
There's nothing wrong with keeping it here.
And this information from Mary White at the Farm Bureau that you're just reading, this comes on top of the closure of the St. Albans plant, the creamery plant,
Yep.
of 107 years that they had been, in action. And now to see that, it's just devastating across the board. I mean, we can't let this industry continue to diminish or decrease here.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
just to give you an idea of the size of the industry in this tiny little state of Vermont.
Yep.
Despite these farm number losses, Vermont milk production has remained relatively stable, declining from 2.7 billion to 2.5 billion pounds annually. This accounts for 2/3 of New England's milk production and contributes approximately $5.4 billion to state economy each year. Production has been sustained by a fewer number of farms rather than a healthy growing system.
Right. So a lot for our economy. They said it with this, with the closure of the St. Albans plant, it was like 80 jobs that had been lost as well, like on top of what the farmer struggle is going to be.
Well, yeah,
because of that.
that's the small piece. Where is all of this milk
Right.
going to have to get shipped to? What about the shipping costs? And why? The thing that puzzles me is we hear all this all the time around the State House. Oh, we're worried about affordability. Well, our actions don't really match what
The concerns are.
the concerns.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
We're not inside of the building. We're not kicking out legislation or deregulating to make Vermont more affordable.
and
We're
that's
telling-
exactly the path, Mike.
That's the same thing
They have
with
to
farmers.
open up the path for the farmers to be able to be successful, to
Yes.
operate their businesses, to be able to make enough money to be sustainable, and also for these younger, smaller farmers coming in. And as a nutritionist, I have a nutrition practice over in St. Johnsbury, and for 25 plus years, connecting farmers with local people. And so there are a lot of young farmers that would like to come on the scene, but we have to make the path easy for them. And that involves what you just said, some of the deregulation and going into the green books. Exactly.
Going into the green books. Maybe should I read some of this post? That,
Oh, yeah. I think
Okay.
that's perfectly
this,
connected.
This made the rounds here. If I can get my computer to cooperate with me here. This was sent to me via email this morning, I think, and it was from a post. It was basically a copy from a social media post by a gentleman named Bob. Okay, and let's see. Recently, my son and his family moved to Texas. They bought a small farm property. We were talking about the differences between farming in Texas and farming in Vermont. In doing some research, I am surprised at the burdens placed on our farms. This is long and will be mostly copy and pasted from AI. I will add this first, okay? And what he did copy and paste is all easily found.
Yep.
Let's see. Vermont is concerned with management of land, protecting open space, and keeping the rural atmosphere. I applaud this. It is the approach I am in disagreement with. Yeah, he and I are on the same page with this one. Mandating what people can and cannot do with their land reeks of paternalistic oversight over the quote-unquote ignorant country folk who do not understand the value of open land. I believe the opposite is true. I will speak in defense of our farmers. You want open space? Protect and encourage farming. This, to me, is a no-brainer.
Exactly.
A farmer with 50 to 400 or more acres of land able to make a comfortable living is less likely to sell that land to developers. This is just common sense. Vermont has so many punitive regulations on farmers and landowners in general. It is a wonder any of them survive. Here are the rankings. And I won't go through the whole post, but I'll just give you, we can talk about some of these talking points. There's 5 points. Economic outlook. The Rich States, Poor States Economic Outlook Report ranks Vermont 48th in the nation. This forward-looking metric captures how aggressively state policies tax and regulate local production.
48. I think people
Number
are
40,
feeling that.
bottom
That is for sure.
of the barrel.
Yes, we
okay?
are. Yeah.
And how do we keep young people here when we're ranked 48th?
It's not going to go well.
Not going to work well.
No.
Number 2, property tax burden. According to the Tax Foundation State Tax Competitiveness Index, Vermont ranks 50th, dead last in the country for its property tax burden. Because agriculture requires immense amounts of acreage, a last place property tax ranking creates a massive operational penalty for farmers trying to hold onto working land.
Yep.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, and I said this in a caucus meeting one day. It kind of fell on dead ears, I believe. The answer is in the green books. If we don't have a legislature coming up in January of 2027 that is willing to examine the green books and remove regulations that are either duplicative or just too onerous to have our farmers and small business people stay in the state, we are not going to remain economically viable.
Right. And one of the things I see in just working with a lot of farmers closely for the nutrition work is that many of them have a lot of extra milk and they have to dump it because they don't have the money to buy a fancy kitchen or build a fancy kitchen to be able to make a value-added product and sell something like cheese.
In Mary White's article, she mentions that there are some producers, but they cannot accept any of the excess right
Right.
now.
There's
They
gotta
don't have
be-
capacity.
Right. There's got to be the path there that we need to create, definitely.
Okay, so we're going to bounce back to this social media post. Administrative volume, 37th most regulated state. The Mercatus Center at George Mason University tracks the total volume of specific word restrictions. Words like shall, must, or prohibited in state codes. Vermont's administrative code contains 83,222 individual regulatory restrictions, making it the 37th most regulated state in the country.
Right.
While 37th might appear moderate at first glance, economists point out that Vermont's actual enforcement density is punishingly high. Vermont enforces tens of thousands of complex rules over a tiny population and small economy, meaning individual family farms bear a much heavier per capita administrative weight than a farm in a highly populated state.
Right.
We are not practicing what we are preaching. If we are concerned about farms, ladies and gentlemen, we need to dig into the green books and show it.
And make
we
the
need
change.
to prove it.
Exactly.
We need to put our money where our mouth is.
And we also could really open it up where farmers could sell direct to stores and to co-ops.
Yes.
In Vermont, you cannot sell raw milk. And
No,
in
I-
New Hampshire and some other states, even in Europe, you can still get raw milk in basically a vending machine.
Yeah.
They have a lot of testing. Raw milk is one of the best things nutritionally for you, and that
Yes.
should be something that they should be able to sell direct to a store, which would probably make a big difference. So it's going through the green books to get rid of some of this regulation and this
Yeah.
overburden that's just unrealistic, and then it's also trying to open up the market for some
Yes.
of these products.
Yes,
Exactly.
and you brought up the raw milk. I have actually have a constituent who is not going to be opening up his farm stand because of the regulation and how many quarts or gallons of raw milk he would need to sell just to cover the regulatory burden.
To make
it
that.
doesn't make any
It's
sense.
devastating.
It really
and they
doesn't
have a
make any
wonderful
sense.
product
Yeah.
that helps to make people so healthy, and then it would help the economy. It would support the farmers.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Number 5 here, the acreage to regulation paradox. This is unbelievable. The true regulatory burden on Vermont farmers stems from a structural mismatch. Vermont enforces large farm rules on small farm operations. In massive agricultural states like Texas or Iowa, heavy water monitoring and strict environmental permitting are reserved for industrialized operations. In contrast, Vermont applies its mandatory required agricultural practices rule to any property generating as little as $2,000 in annual agricultural income or utilizing just 4 acres of land. Because of this system, Vermont ranks as top-tier state for regulatory pressure because it forces small-scale farm operations to manage the same soil testing, nutrient application logs, and runoff liabilities that other states only require from massive corporate entities. We are unique, no. Vermont is the only state in the country to experience natural population loss and negative net migration.
Right.
Well, what?
Got to fix that.
No
Gotta
wonder.
fix that.
Yes.
Oh my
Well,
goodness.
we have to become attractive, both tax-wise,
And economically.
economically.
Yes.
I'm going to bring it up again. Open up your schools, school choice.
Yes.
You
It's
have to
connected.
have what was you were talking about, and all of the above.
Oh, yeah.
If you want to be economically attractive to residents of other states,
Have the options.
have the options.
Right, and stop taxing. Exactly. Like
Yeah.
we know what the answer is, and we just have to try to,
Well-
remove government from every little transaction that people are trying to have in society and community.
And with that, I think what you're saying without saying it is change some of the membership.
Yes, because that's how we can make
Absolutely.
some of this stuff happen.
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
So, and unfortunately, because time flies when we're having fun, we're come to the end of another segment here. So we have to pay some bills, and then we will return, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to Right Side Up. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to Right Side Up. My name is Mike Taglavia. My co-host is Allison Despathy. Before we move on to our next subject, with regard to the dairy industry, we were talking about regulations. We were talking about that social media post that dealt with, burdensome taxes, regulations. I just want to give people an idea of some of what goes on in the State House. First session in 2025, where I can't remember what day of the week it was, but it was a day that a morning we were going in to committee, in the Environment Committee. We were going to be voting on a bill that had to deal with EPA regulations. It had to do with farms, Agency of Agriculture, and EPA. And so whether A&R and Agency of Ag were going to be working together on this inspections and enforcement with respect to CAFOs, small farms, LFOs, MFOs, LFOs, large farm operations.
And so the CAFO being that confined animal feeding operation.
Right.
Exactly,
And
yes.
a lot of these regs had to do with stormwater and permitting. There's a lot of stuff. A lot of these farmers have a lot of regs to deal with on top of their herd issues, price of milk, all kinds of stuff.
Right.
So we leave the evening before, the day before, thinking all the wording is done. We're just going to do a quick walkthrough, review, and we're going to have a committee vote. Well, in the morning, things had changed. We get in our agenda, there's the timeline, and there's witnesses.
What's happening here?
Guess what,
huh?
ladies and gentlemen? The NGOs.
So the non-government organizations.
Yeah, they got on the hotline.
Yep.
They had their reserved seat in the room, and there was more language, new language, to change.
Do they
what
hold a
we had.
lot of influence over many legislators, a lot of power
Right.
and control,
So-
often at the expense of the people?
Yes, and
Right.
and they represent themselves as stakeholders, except that the other stakeholders, in this case farmers, didn't have the same status in the room.
Right.
Okay, in my personal opinion.
Well, this is where we
So
have many legislators
is-
who are endorsed,
Yeah.
and really support the agendas of these NGOs, which you may agree with, but a lot of times they give them way too much control over influencing how policy is developed. And
Right.
this is fundamental. This is
Right.
at the heart of a lot of the
Well,
issues
yeah.
we see. Right?
And the reason I brought this up is because if there was someone else, say from a town in middle of the state or southern
Yep.
Vermont, who wanted at that short period of time to be able to come in and testify, I seriously doubt the same consideration wouldn't have been given.
Right. Would they
That's
have been
why I'm
given
bringing
a seat
this
at the
up.
table is the question.
That's why
Right.
I'm bringing this up.
Right.
So there is that to keep in mind when you're reading this article in Vermont Daily Chronicle by Mary White.
Yep. The
Dated June
influence of
22.
these NGOs.
Yes,
right.
the influence, okay? And the
Right.
reason I bring this up is because of what came out last session, 181 S325, and with the RVR,
The Rural Vermont Rising.
Vermont Rising,
Yes.
social media page.
And it's trying to strike that balance where obviously the people are trying to come in and say, hey, wait a minute, you're representing us. We are your constituents. You're not representing an agenda, regardless of how you may
Yes.
feel about this nonprofit's agenda. And that's where we need a strong line of defense, Mike, like you guys in there and what you guys helped to make happen with S325 to correct this Act 181 private property attack issue. So we need guards. We need that line of defense. And that's where, unfortunately, those who have been captured by a lot of these NGOs and nonprofits are not providing that role for us.
Right.
That's
Well,
what we need to fix.
of the 414 farms that are remaining, if one of those had sent an email saying, I want to come testify, I've got language,
Right. Good point. Would
I'm not sure that would have happened.
Right.
We had one of my constituents waiting in the room one day
Yes.
to testify. Never got a chance.
Right. Came all the way out.
Came out, took the day off,
Right.
didn't do some of the work that needed to be done on the farm.
Right.
And it wasn't like there was a delay and a reschedule. Not available.
So how do you make it that the
So-
people hold as much weight, and that
Right.
that's where I guess that's just your back at elections. You elect people who are going to serve their constituents and not serve an agenda.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. That's basically what I'm trying to get to. So
Yeah.
the highlight of the NGOs, the special interest groups that have had a lot of influence on legislation these past number of years. It was highlighted in this past session. It was highlighted on social media. A lot of rural Vermonters, a lot of individual voters got involved because they started hearing about what was going on. That's my point.
Right.
Is
Exactly.
if you want to have your seat at the table, you've got to be paying attention to what's going on.
And I will say, and I mean this with all due respect, but I think it's a really important example. So there is a man running in the Montpelier district. His name is Jared Duval. And Connor Casey had stepped down from that district,
Okay,
Representative Connor Casey. So,
Yep.
so Jared Duval is running, and Jared Duval is the executive director of Energy Action Network. He's also a member of the Climate Council. Energy Action Network, an NGO nonprofit.
Right.
They were funded by the Maverick Lloyd Foundation. They were very heavily involved in the development of the Global Warming Solutions Act, which is where we're
Okay.
supposed to have our greenhouse gas reduction requirements. This is what's been leading to the Clean Heat Standard policy, the cap and invest. Basically, we're going to raise the cost of your heating fuel and your
Right.
gas. And so my question for Jared and for anyone in this district who might be voting for him is he going to step down from Energy Action Network? Is he going to step down from the Climate Council? Is he going to represent his constituents in his district? Or is he going to continue to represent and lobby and push for his agenda, which frankly I find very destructive with
Right.
what the Global Warming Solutions Act has been pushing on people. And I just bring this up with all due respect to a legitimate question that I have for why does someone step up to run? What is their intention? What are they
Okay,
hoping
yeah.
to achieve?
Right.
And that's where I think that there really have been legislators who have been part of some of these nonprofits and NGOs and have even gone through the Emerge program, which Madeline Coonan began and is really sort of a training camp for women who are going to be candidates to run. And how are they being taught about policy? How are they, what are they being told to go in and try to make happen? Are they being taught about real representation and what it means to represent your constituents? And I think these are
Right.
some of the fundamental questions that we're grappling with right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well,
So-
it sounds to me like he won't be like me as a co-sponsor of the Global Warming Solutions Act repeal.
Well,
I
that
don't think he will be.
and that is we need that repeal. You're exactly
yeah.
right. I know
Yeah.
you,
No,
Mark,
we
Representative
definitely do.
Higley. We do. If we want to serve
definitely do.
Vermonters, that's got to go. And so it's going to be interesting to see if he gets in there and what that's going to look like for Vermont.
Yeah, I think there's been a huge awakening with respect to that. There really, truly is. We live in a very environmentally conscious state, and the Global Warming Solutions Act is not having it repealed is not going to make us any more or less environmentally conscious.
No.
We're going to have the same mindset. We will still be looking to be as environmentally friendly as we can while still trying to grow the economy, grow the numbers in our population, keep young people here,
Focus on
entice
efficiency
young people
and
to
reduce
move to the state.
consumption.
Yes.
Exactly.
So
We're already doing a lot, and we've talked about this before, Mike, but
sure.
we just have to acknowledge and really respect and be grateful for what many Vermonters do
Yeah.
to help the environment. And
Okay. I think we need to switch gears. You brought up some of the things that we should talk about, and probably we should talk about a couple of the repeals
oh yeah, the
that
governor's
the governor,
vetoes.
excuse me, not repeals, vetoes.
Yes.
So because we got better numbers in the legislature, the governor actually was able to sustain vetoes, and he actually I lost count. is it at least 4, I think.
Oh yeah, I think there's even more than that right
Yeah,
now.
I've
But
lost count.
Do you guys have a veto override session? Are they going to try to come back and see?
No.
Okay,
no.
it's not.
There's
So
not
it's
gonna
done.
Be. It would have been today is what?
The 22nd
Tuesday.
or the 23rd.
Yeah. So, yeah, we would be in there. We would
Okay.
be in there. So,
So no veto override session. That's
well,
exciting.
because we sustained a veto while we were still in session before we adjourned.
that was the data
last
center
day.
one, right?
Yes.
Yep.
And so I think the handwriting was on the wall. It was going to be a waste of time
Right.
and taxpayer money.
Right.
Okay. So, and the governor, I'm sure you can remember because I don't, he had good explanations
Oh,
for some
phenomenal.
of them. So, I mean, just go ahead and pick one. I like that he vetoed the single plant one.
Oh, yes.
I don't like that it seemed to be able to be a way to fast track more industrial solar on. Here we go again. We just read an article
On
about
farmlands.
farmland,
Right.
And the single plant would have made it easier to take prime ag soils and turn it into industrial solar. And I'm going to need to repeat myself. I use solar
Yes.
and batteries and generator. I live completely off grid. I am not against solar. I do not believe that we should be incentivizing solar over farms.
Right.
If we were to give farmers the same subsidies and tax incentives, maybe we would not be losing farms. We'd be actually putting more farms on the books.
Exactly.
So that's where I
So
stand.
that was
on
a really big win.
Yeah.
A lot of legislators honestly didn't even, in my opinion, understand what was going on with that H710 single plant bill. So
Yeah.
that was a really big win because, as you said, Mike, I mean, 75% of the larger solar projects are on ag land, and 710, we don't need to be expanding in those sites without a conversation on preferred locations and where the solar should go and what it should look like.
Right.
And we still haven't had that conversation.
No.
So that was a really great one to see repealed. And then obviously the data center repeal, and
Yep.
and then this is where, again, just in talking about some of the NGOs and the nonprofits, many of them have tried to manipulate the fact that the governor did veto 727, the data center bill, but he was completely justified. I was working very, very closely on that data center bill to make sure water was going to be okay, ratepayers were going to be okay. As it came out of the House, it was looking pretty good. There were still a few shifts, but
and
then
in
the
governor's
Senate,
in the governor's explanation, he basically mentioned
he did.
that when it came out of the House, it was something that he definitely would have signed.
Yes.
And when it went into the Senate, it was too much overreach. It was very onerous on business. And it wasn't, it was so much so that it wouldn't even just keep data centers out. It was going to keep any very large industrial site out. And if we want to, I personally would like for us to be more than just a service economy and a tourism economy.
Right.
We need a production economy.
Right, and we need that to be able to come in. Exactly.
We need that option.
But
so,
they popped on literally an extortion fee, and that sets
Yeah.
a horrible precedent when there is a business or an industry looking to come here. You just don't do
Yeah.
it. They also really created a loophole for pollution in our water that was never dealt with and cleaned up. So, in my opinion, 100% fully behind the governor's veto of that. That was a great thing to see. So that, the 710, and you know what? This is where, Mike, I got to say, I am just so happy that we have 3 branches of government because that was really important checks on irresponsible policy that came through the legislative body. I mean, if
Right.
you want laws to be respected, you make respectable laws, and those were absolutely lacking heavily.
right. And
Yeah.
the other thing I would like to add is if, in my estimation, if we wind up with more balance, just say, for instance, in a perfect world, we wind up with 73 people like Mike in the legislature, okay? What is going to be the governor's need for a veto? It's probably not going to be there. And the reason I say that is not because we're going to be able to push stuff through and the governor's just going to laugh at the minority and just say, ha ha, this is what we did. My reasoning for that is because there will hopefully be more deliberation in committee, both in the House and in the Senate.
Yes.
And even if we have less bills come out, what was it, 12 or 1,300 bills?
That go in.
Yeah, I can't remember. But we had a huge number of bills passed the House this year. I cannot even remember. I didn't look at how many. But when you think about it, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm looking at the clock here, we're running over. We did not get at affordability, housing, taxation, school structure. We didn't fix some of the most pressing issues.
Right, the things
So-
that affect all of us. But
No.
to be continued. We'll pick
Yes,
up next round.
to be continued.
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be right back. You're listening to Right Side Up. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to Right Side Up. My name is Mike Taglavia. My co-host today is Allison Despathy. Thankfully, Allison has been able to join me for quite a few shows. I think hopefully it's much more enjoyable rather than me just reading from a few articles talking about it. So before we get back into our discussion, rightside-up-radio@gmail.com if you'd like to drop us a line. If you, for some reason, can't catch us on the radio because we're outside of your radio listening area, you can always listen to us WNTK.com, find the podcast button, click on it, scroll down to Right Side Up. You can listen to any number of our shows any time of the day or night, and you can share them with a friend. You can find us on 802 Scoop Facebook, 802 Scoop YouTube. You can find us on Podbean, and you can also find us on granitegrok.com. And thank you, everyone, for listening and sharing the show. So, before we get back into our discussion about vetoes and other things, we are already in week 26 of the year. Mm-hmm. So the summer solstice was a few days ago. So that means our days are starting to get shorter. Yes. And I don't mean to be a downer, but that's where we are.
Reality check, right.
That's where we are.
Yep.
So it seems like, I know for me, the older I get, the faster time flies.
Yes, it's precious.
Yeah,
Time
it
is precious.
It
indeed.
definitely is. So,
Yeah.
let's get back into some of these, the vetoes. And I think
Yes.
before we got left for our last commercial, the vetoes are a good backstop.
Yes.
Okay, they're a good emergency brake.
Yes.
Okay, if we get closer to even numbers and we get more deliberation on fewer bills, then we're going to have better quality stuff coming out. And there's absolutely less need for that kind of action by the
Right.
governor.
Right.
And the governor, and ladies and gentlemen, you can go online. I'm not sure where now that I said it, but you can find through his press releases, Amanda Wheeler is his press person.
Yep.
When he puts out a veto, he also puts out a letter with his explanation. And his explanations have been, they have not been long, but he's been giving people great explanations for why.
Yes, very clear
Very
answers.
clear.
The office of the governor, you'd
Yes.
easily be able to find it. And
Yes.
his team, I feel like his team have really done a lot of good research with where they're landing and the reasoning behind these vetoes. Because all of the bills that I've seen vetoed, the data center, despite how much I was a fan of that early on in the House, as we
Yes.
discussed, the data center, the 710 single plant, the solar sort of expansion bill, so to speak.
Right.
And then the other one was the reference-based pricing.
Right.
And that was S190. But that wasn't reference-based pricing. It was actually imposing price caps, and it would have hurt our hospitals, and it would have just cost shifted. So there may have been some savings in some of the qualified health plans or the health insurance plans for educators, but that would have just shifted over to other Vermonters
Well, that
paying
was
their
one of the
insurance,
main
right.
things. That was, excuse me, that was roll call voted in the House.
Okay, yes,
And,
gotcha.
I'm 99% sure I voted against it. I
Yeah.
can't remember. I think I did. But
Well, it's so
it
tricky because-
favored only 15% of
Right.
the insured in Vermont. So it didn't do a lot for a lot of people. That
Right.
was one of the main problems with it. It showed preference to a very small sector of the population.
Yes, and it was also, that was one of the main things that Governor Scott did point out, was just the unfairness around
Yes,
this. Yeah,
that's exactly
it
what he
was
did. You're
really
right.
just the cost shift, and it would have definitely put, I think hospitals at risk. The hospitals were testifying against this, saying, this is going to be a burden, this is going to hurt us, and we don't need to reduce access to care. We need to make sure that communities in Vermont have access to care. Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that was it was good. I'm sure he took no pleasure in doing any of the vetoes. But I think, like I said, if we get more deliberation, fewer bills, we have more time
Yeah.
to deal with some of these, because some of these bills were actually, they seemed, and if you were to speak with some of the committee members, some of these seemed rushed in committee.
Oh, definitely.
And we're talking about affecting tens of thousands of Vermonters. We're talking about millions of dollars here.
Right. And creating
So,
policy that
yeah,
should be, like you
That
have
should
said,
be long-standing.
deliberative
It should
and
endure.
responsible.
Right.
And 710 is a classic example. 710 did not have adequate testimony on it at all. And the other thing that I would just encourage people to do is, unfortunately, you end up seeing a lot of propaganda that comes out. I mean, I've already seen from
A lot of fear-mongering.
Vermont NEA, some of the other candidates for governor right now saying, oh, look, S190 reference-based pricing was vetoed, and this would have helped our affordability crisis and insurance costs. And you know what? It wouldn't have. It would
No,
have
it
cost
wouldn't.
shifted. And that's where I would definitely encourage people to sort of dig deep, to look at some of the governor's letters as to why he actually vetoed those, and to try to understand, we don't need irresponsible, imbalanced policy. And that's what all of those vetoes really were.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah,
So again,
opening up
thank
the
goodness
market.
for that
Yeah.
third branch.
Well, yeah. I mean, we talk about, we're coming up on our 250th.
Yes, we are.
And our founders, the people who wrote not just the Vermont Constitution,
Mm-hmm.
but the Constitution of the United States, they put a lot of thought into
And
it.
that declaration,
They were very,
oh my goodness.
yes, they were very well read.
Yes.
Some were very young, comparatively to what we, compared to our young people today, and how much knowledge they have of the reading that some of the founders had.
Right.
Some of the writers of some of the, the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, the Federalist Papers.
Right.
So,
And just
Yeah, it's very good.
understanding,
Yeah,
understanding our rights, our natural rights, our inalienable rights of life, liberty, property, pursuit of happiness, and the
Yes.
fact that people created government to protect and uphold and secure those rights. So when we start to have a government that's creeping and crossing red lines and overreaching, it is our duty. It is our civic duty to call that out. And that is, I
Yes.
feel like, exactly what started to really happen this session, with more balance and more Republicans coming in. And hopefully that will continue to happen, because we don't want that overreach. And when that starts to happen, what does it say in the Declaration? We need to either alter or abolish the form of
Yes.
government. We don't want to
Yes.
abolish our government.
No.
We just want to make sure that they're acting as they should.
yeah,
Right.
acting as they should. And a lot of, it's unfortunate, but even in our schools, we were talking about this. If we're not taught, if our young people are not taught about the true meaning of the Constitution,
Right.
and what the thinking was behind it, and who the people who wrote the Constitution, and what they read,
Right. Right.
where they were coming from,
Who was
what they knew of
influencing their
history.
thought. Right. Right.
That this is the thing that, we find that, like you said, a lot of people, you get this fear-mongering or misinformation about bills that are vetoed. The better understanding we have of the whole situation, the more in focus everything is.
Yes.
So, this is, with the 250th, the focus needs to be on our founding documents.
Yes.
Why were they written the way they were written? What was the purpose? Who were those documents supposed to protect?
Right.
Those documents were not supposed to protect government. They were supposed to protect people.
And they were a revolt on taxes.
Yes,
They
and
were
they were
literally,
based
here's
on
a list of our grievances.
Yes,
We have
the
a
list of
problem with this tyranny. So
Yeah.
we are going to act and do something about that. And at this time, what do we have in our power to do? We have our power to vote. We have our power to
Yes.
vote, to get people in there who will work for us and uphold these inalienable rights that we
Yes.
hold so dear.
But that's not just the only power you need to exercise, ladies and gentlemen. What you did this past session
Yes.
with your civic engagement, not just vote, but keep your eye on the ball. Watch. I know it's tedious. I know you've got a lot to do, but if we have more people watching what's going on, then it's not going to be quite so tedious, number one, because you're going to be more familiar with it. And two, those regulations that we were talking about earlier in the show, some of them go away to make your life a whole lot easier.
Exactly.
And that's the goal.
And to save you some of your hard-earned money.
Yes.
Exactly.
Exactly.
And we've already got a list sort of brewing, Mike. We mentioned Global Warming Solutions Act.
yeah.
You're on the repeal for that.
Oh, yeah.
Renewable Energy Standard. These are some of the things that we want to make sure that people do understand. And people always say renewable
burdensome
energies-
regulations.
Yes, and going to raise basic necessity costs, which none of us
and not make
need.
anything more accessible.
Right, or better. No.
Right. Okay. If I call it a good, better, best policy with respect to energy. You call it all of the above.
Right.
I think over time, what will happen is the top three will wind up being what we have.
Right.
Okay. But the idea that there's a marketplace and there's competition in that marketplace for business, that's what's going to help keep the price down.
Right.
And the availability up.
Right. And how do we make sure that that market is open and available and the path is there so that then all of us do have real choices in our life of what's going to work and help us keep our dollars, because it's tight. I think it's tight for a lot of people. A lot of people are struggling, and we have to make sure that we respect that people work hard for this money and they shouldn't have to be spending it out because the government told them that this is the way it's going to be.
Right. That makes me think of, I saw a post within the past few days. There was in Orange County, there was a school district that had a vote for their budget, and the budget passed. And this person was making observations after the budget passed. He was in the room, and he said there were people celebrating that the budget passed, but it represented a pretty big increase, which meant taxes were going up. And the question he had was, I wonder if the people celebrating managed to notice the elderly couple in the back of the room with tears in their eyes because they didn't know how they were going to be able to stay in their home.
Right. And we just cannot have that going on.
No, we can't. I'm sure we can find a way. I'm sure we can. The problem is too many people don't like change. Human beings don't like change.
Right.
Even if you don't like the situation you're in, when you tell somebody, here's what you do to fix it, they're afraid to.
It's a big deal
to make the jump.
Right. Right.
But we can fix our tax issues. I'm convinced of it. I know history has proven that we can do it.
Well, that's us rethinking how we do education in Vermont.
Yeah,
obviously.
Well, it's not just the education part, the affordability in general, but education is a huge piece.
Yes,
because it takes so much of our budget.
Right.
But we with the right makeup of the legislature, in conjunction with the governor, like we have, who's trying to be fiscally responsible with what he's dealing with.
Right.
Then we can do this. I'm convinced we can. It's just a matter of time. And my concern is how many people decide they're done before we fix it.
Right.
That's a big concern of mine.
And some
I
of the
hope
things
nobody does.
I know, exactly. And I keep hearing, just with some of the other candidates right now out there running for governor, I keep hearing things like, energy independence and universal health care. And it's just, we've gone down those roads before. Look at all the costs of this. This is really not sustainable, not viable for Vermont.
No,
but
it's
again,
not.
it's a lot of rhetoric. It's a lot of propaganda that gets put out there. And really, when it comes down to it, you just have to sort of dig in and look at policy and see what we can do.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So it's and some of these things we have the historical knowledge. I mean, with universal health care, look at other countries. Look north of our border. We can see what it's done there.
Right.
It hasn't been very good there.
Right.
Over in places in Europe, they have it too. And some people say, oh, it's great, but look at the wait times.
Right.
And why, if it's so great, do we have people from all over the world coming to this country to have some sort of a major operation or deal with some sort of major health care problem that they have?
Right.
They come here.
Yeah.
Why is that?
I know.
You need to look into that. So...
and we should talk more on that next time. I think there's a lot to be said on that.
Yeah, there is a lot to talk about with healthcare. Hopefully we can have a guest or two on. You and I have been talking about a few guests, so maybe we can manage to make that happen. So
That
we
sounds
can
like a plan.
we can give our listeners a little bit more to think about,
And just some
unfortunately,
ideas, right?
some ideas.
Yes.
And eventually it's going to wind up leading to homework. Hopefully we get you so interested that you want to do your own research into it. Because we can only give you so much information in 3 short 15-minute
Right.
segments.
But
So,
definitely know who you're going to vote for. Do your research there for sure.
absolutely do your
Indeed.
research. So
Yes.
remember, ladies and gentlemen, stay safe, stay informed, listen to Right Side Up.